You're listening to The Streaming Wars, the podcast that discusses all of the latest happenings regarding your favorite streaming services. Find out which service is winning the war this time around.
Hello everyone and welcome to the latest episode of The Streaming Wars. I am Dustin and Tony is with me and we are here to discuss everything from September 23rd through October 6th. Hopefully the last week, if you didn't know, I was on vacation and that's why we didn't have an episode. Hopefully you knew all that and were anticipating I didn't get as many messages as the last time we didn't have an episode, so I assumed that the last episode it was good enough warning. But there is a bunch of stuff that has happened over the past 2 weeks. There is a ton of news. We have some discussion points. We might save those discussion points because they're pretty significantly, they're worth a pretty hefty discussion. So we might save those for next week. But we do have, like I said, a bunch of news. So let's jump into Netflix. Netflix sets the Future Set feature Spiderhead. Chris Hemsworth and Miles Teller will be part of that. Netflix has landed a pitch based on a Note of Explanation novel. There is a Conan the Barbarian series that is currently in development. Netflix has ordered the children's series Ada Twist Scientist from one of the creators of Doc McStuffins and the Obama's production company. There's a Jeffrey Dahmer limited series from Ryan Murphy that has been greenlit. Netflix has also acquired the rights to the Wraith novel. There is a family series called Lost Ollie, which is coming from one of the creators behind Coraline. And then finally, Netflix has secured the film The Guilty for $30 million. This is a Jake Gyllenhaal film that was actually, we were talking about Antoine Fuqua is the director. This was actually a project that popped up a couple months back when Apple was buying stuff like crazy and came up as one of the films that could potentially be bought by a service. Well, it ends up now it's going to be at Netflix rather than Apple TV Plus, which I believe were the original place that those rumors slated the film to go.
I found this pretty interesting. I feel like there's a new pattern emerging with Netflix of where they are scooping up a lot more content within like the $20 million to $30 million, maybe $40 million range of movies. Maybe it's just a little bit noteworthy. It just seems like over time we've discussed more of Netflix doing these types of moves, and it seems like it's very good content. And I'm curious how that's gonna work down the line. There's a lot of movies. The way how movies work, these scripts that get passed around through Hollywood and go to film festivals and all this type of stuff. And there's a lot of movies that are just not going to make it to theaters. I mean, the way how we consume movies is it's dead right now. It's going to be dead for a while. And we'll talk later about different movies that have been shunted to different streaming services, or it's just crazy. And there's a bunch of different ways to do it. There's Mulan and paid video on demand. There's just straight to the streaming service. But the point is that there's a lot of like these movies out there and this content out there, and that streaming services are picking up. Well, it's you're no longer going to see, like, besides the big budgets, superhero films that are out without, then littered in your theater, or just these other smaller budget movies that happen. We're not going to see that. If theaters are going to be open and have capacity, it's going to be for these big superhero movies or these big budget movies. But even then, with Tenet, you could just see that it's still a struggle. So there's a lot more content going around, and we're seeing Netflix buy up a lot of it. And I'm curious, like, financially how this is going to go for them, and how this is going to drive their customer growth, and if this is going to be a new trend, or it's just they're just experimenting, they're trying something new, given the market and given how the whole industry is. Maybe that they're just diving into this, seeing that maybe there's some good properties, maybe some good films that can translate to subscriber growth. But I'm just curious to see how this is going to go. This is a long-term trend, or this is just a short-term trend for Netflix?
Yeah, and I've got some more comments, but I'm going to save those until we get to HBO Max, because there's two more projects as well that kind of go align with that. So jumping over to Prime Video, there is the young adult TV series The Inheritance Games that is currently in development. Amazon has landed the series Dirty Diana. Amazon has inked an overall television deal with Matthew Lopez, who's a playwright. There are two new projects in the works at Prime Video from author Gemma Burgess, and then there was a Borat sequel, who, if you remember correctly, this was probably like over 10 years ago. There was a movie with Sacha Baron Cohen. It was called Borat, and there was a sequel that was supposed to land in theaters this season, and turns out it's actually headed to Prime Video, so there's yet another one. And then finally, Amazon has ordered a spin-off series from The Boys, because The Boys has proven to be extremely popular and very, very good for Prime Video.
The Boys is amazing. If you haven't seen seasons 1 or season 2, you should. Warning, you shouldn't watch it with kids. It is definitely mature, but overall, it's a great property, and it's a almost a hidden gem. I mean, it's huge on Amazon Prime. It's huge in certain circles, but I feel like it still hasn't gotten the praise it is due. This is interesting because this is the first time I feel Amazon is creating a shared universe, and coming where we come from on the comic side, that's a little bit contentious term. And so, the shared part of it being that Amazon is making multiple properties that fit in the same universe within their platform. It seems to be the first time, and I'm curious, this experiment, companies trying something new. They're diving into this property, this world of The Boys, and how can they still keep the same magic of The Boys and yet create a good show that adds to the universe. The numbers for The Boys season 2 are fantastic. They've beaten expectations. I think the first episode of season 2 blew the ratings for the last episode of season 1, which is already pretty high. So season 2 has just been it's just been great. So overall, this is a great move, I think, for Amazon as a fan. I think it's a smart business move. I'm curious to see what the show's going to be.
All right, there is nothing for Hulu. Paramount Plus, CBS All Access has ordered the comedy docuseries For Heaven's Sake. Jumping over to Apple TV Plus, Apple has ordered the comedy series High Desert. This is going to be with Patricia Arquette and Ben Stiller. Apple is also going to debut the documentary Bruce Springsteen's Letter to You. Jumping over to Disney Plus, Disney Plus has officially rolled out the group feature to all users within the US. This was originally being used as a beta Canada. Now it is available for all users within the US. And Disney Plus is said to be developing a Marvel series surrounding Nick Fury and his time after the events of Captain Marvel.
We as, we as, analysts, we as critics, we as fans in general have been very critical of Disney Plus and Disney for the lack of adult-ish content. I'm not talking about mature rated, but I'm talking about content that speaks to adults. I think Disney Plus is a great product for kids. My kid loves it. She's watching Bluey or something right now. I mean, she's loving Disney Plus, but for adults, it's been kind of hard to enjoy the service because outside of maybe the old Marvel content or Star Wars movies, there really hasn't been much that really attracts adults besides The Mandalorian. Mandalorian season 2 is coming out. Thank goodness. It defied the odds of COVID and it's still happening, but there's still a lot of other Marvel TV shows that have been promised, but they haven't really been produced. So there's been this lag of content. And I feel like for adults, for the adult audience, there's been a lag of, excitement besides The Mandalorian for the service. And getting Samuel L. Jackson, who is a legend, who is amazing, who is fantastic, who by himself can, just light up a fan base. I think this is a great move. There's a lot more of the story of Nick Fury that could be told. There's a lot more of the S.H.I.E.L.D. universe, the spy part of it that can be told. And I think a television format is the perfect medium for that. And delivering it through streaming, I think, is even better because you can not worry about commercial breaks and you can have the full 45 full hour for content. So this is a great move. I do, however, as a fan, and I understand why they might not do this, but I hope they allow Nick Fury, they allow Samuel Jackson to, say his most iconic phrase. But, if you're a fan of Samuel Jackson, you know his phrase. And so I would be floored if they do, but, $10 says that given that it's going to be on Disney Plus, they're going to keep it, PG-13 and not say his most iconic phrase. Overall, this is a fantastic move for Disney Plus. I think it's going to be a real hit with the fans.
And as much criticism as we give Disney Plus, the one thing I will say is they're at least forward thinking and coming up with these new ideas for shows, expanding the amount of content that is geared more towards adults. We know that there's 2 different Star Wars series outside of The Mandalorian that are in development. There's multiple Marvel series. It's just going to take a large amount of time. And I think initially there was that slow buildup because Disney Plus probably didn't have any idea that they were going to blow up as quickly as they did. The catch, of course, is that they need to keep obviously announcing more content, even if it is in development and coming down, 2-3 years from now, because they need to keep those subscribers from actually leaving the service and going somewhere else for content. So their hope is that it seems like every 2 months we get a big announcement related to something with Disney Plus that's coming in the future, even if it is, like I said, a couple years out. So props to them for at least acknowledging that they do need to ramp this up and get a lot more content. And if that means having a steady stream of Marvel TV shows and Star Wars where they're back to back to back, like we've talked about before COVID happened, I remember we assumed that Falcon and Winter Soldier came out in August. It was going to go right into Mandalorian season 2, which then could have went right into WandaVision season, the season of WandaVision. If all three of those went back to back, that would have been perfect for Disney Plus and a steady stream of content to keep subscribers around. Unfortunately, COVID had its own say in the matter, and that prevented obviously more content from happening along their timeline. But it is nice to see that eventually, as things start to get back on schedule with production and things like that, we're going to potentially see more things picking up and more content coming from Disney that is geared towards adults. So, all right, jumping over to Quibi, there's a travel docuseries called Sex Plants that is coming to Quibi. There's also a series called Black Equals Beauty. Then there is a report over at Bloomberg that I suggest everyone who is looking for the exploration of Quibi's woes to take a look at, because they have done some math and they have come up with a number of $1.8 billion that Quibi currently needs in order to prevent them from basically going under. Now, this basically means the gist of the article talks about how many subscribers they have, how much content they have compared to everybody else. Obviously, there was that report a couple weeks back about how Quibi was potentially looking for a buyer, to purchase them. Unfortunately, Quibi doesn't have they're not worth a lot because they don't own their content. They don't have a library of content that they can sell along with the service. They just have the technology, which by itself isn't incredibly worth a lot of money. It's certainly not worth $1.8 billion or $1.75 billion, which is what they raised prior to the launch. But it definitely shows that Quibi is in some, of course, these numbers, I have to point out, they're not, they're an assumption. They're not exact, but one would assume that they're pretty close to what Quibi's dealing with and why we're suddenly hearing about Quibi looking for potential sale or more investments or anything like that. But at this point, like I've said multiple times before, Quibi is not on track to, rise from the ashes in any way, shape, or form.
I mean, this report's it's a little staggering. I mean, I think that it makes sense that startups lose money. The startups are having, issues with cash, but 1.8 is a significant, sum. And given the fact that they've raised a whole lot of money over this time, I mean, there's already been, 2 rounds of pretty huge funding, and there's probably some other amounts of funding that haven't been reported. I'm kind of curious how much equity is still left so that Katzenberg and company can have majority shares. I mean, you can't just get funding for free. That has to come from something. So it comes from an evaluation and how much you're willing. I mean, to make it simple, basically watch Shark Tank and then how they kind of do it, and that there's a similar process. If you're really into the financial stuff, it's not exactly like Shark Tank at all, but it's close enough for people who are not that familiar with this process. I'm curious, how much Katzenberg has left to sell. He's not Elon Musk. He can't just will through Twitter or through public speech of how great Tesla's going to be and their stock price is going to rise or they're going to get funding that way. He just isn't. And I think that Quibi is not that type of product that's so revolutionary. It's going to drive this type of speculation that's going to prop the company forward. It's just not that type of product. So I'm curious what is there left to give? What is their strategy? Is it through traditional VCs? And VCs are ruthless. They're going to look at the numbers, look at the subscribers, and might give them a crappy deal of hey, we want this percentage exit the company for this money, and it's going to be a lot more than you think to right the ship. That could be a huge thing. I'm curious what if they're going to do. There's some other types of funding that you can do of different bonds that you can raise. Netflix uses a lot to fund a lot of their debt. And I'm not sure if banks would underwrite those bonds. There's just a lot that can happen. There's some moves that they can do. I just don't understand what's left at Quibi that's attractive besides maybe the technology. Maybe it's the fact that they have an app. It might not be a lot of numbers, but within the millions that are already on people's devices, and they already have that streaming infrastructure already in place. You could buy that up and put some different type of content, news clippings or something. I don't know. But the point is that I'm not sure what there's left of Quibi that Katzenberg could potentially sell to people that makes it attractive. And 1.8 shortfall, that's a lot of money. That's a lot being in the red that they have to figure out. And that's the concerning part. So interesting idea about Quibi to launch with this type of service, but it's going to be really hard to get out of this valley that they're in.
So jumping over to HBO Max, the first thing we've got is HBO Max has ordered a Suicide Squad spin-off series called The Peacemaker, starring John Cena with James Gunn attached to it as well. This is, I gotta say, a pretty interesting idea because this is now the second upcoming DC Universe movie that will now have a series landing at HBO Max tied into the existing universe that's being created with the movies. We've got the GCPD series that's coming from the Batman film and Matt Reeves, and now we've got this Suicide Squad spinoff with the Peacemaker.
I think people enjoy continuity. I think people enjoy this overarching story that connects, and that you can watch the films and you can watch the TV show, and that there's some shared moments and beats in between. I feel like the Suicide Squad is kind of like the perfect, thing, because the idea of the Suicide Squad is basically these criminals are being threatened. They are being forced to work for the government to work their parole, or they get their heads blown up. It's a pretty ridiculous premise as it is, and the villains that they choose are quite interesting in comic book lore. They're like the no names. They're very weird people, like Calendar Man or Polka Dot Man, like just weird people that no one really ever cares about. And so there's a lot of room to be creative, and I feel like a television show gives some of these characters that are not that popular room to really breathe, to really tell an interesting story, and it will allow writers and showrunners and people to really experiment that, yes, they are a part of a superhero franchise, but it is a very unique story in its own. I know nothing about Peacemaker, and I like comics. And, John Cena is an interesting character, interesting actor. I'm curious to see where this is going to go. But given the fact that James Gunn is directly involved in this, makes me more interested, because, you sometimes might have like, okay, we're going to do the spinoff project and we're going to just throw it over here and see what happens. I'm looking at Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and kind of like the Marvel Netflix content. Like, it's a part of the universe, but it really isn't. But having James Gunn, who is the director, the producer of Suicide Squad, being involved with this television show really gives it some credibility and some weight. But once again, it's kind of also given the same type of praise that I did for Amazon and like the Boys spinoff of like venturing out and having this type of synergy between platforms of within their platform. But for HBO Max, it's synergy between like the box office part of their business and within their streaming service. And I think that's great. And I'm curious to see how this is going to go moving forward.
And one could say that obviously HBO Max / Warner Media is mirroring the success of the stuff with Marvel, but I honestly don't think that's entirely true, because while Marvel is just now in the midst of getting a bunch of Marvel shows onto Disney Plus, they haven't actually released them. We don't know how well they're going to be received. I assume they're going to be received very well, because, why wouldn't they? But you have to assume that, HBO Max is looking at this and saying it is important to have their properties have this continuity over multiple different things. And despite the fact that they already have television universe on the CW with a ton of superhero shows, they realize that there is something with the idea of having everything kind of connecting in some way.
I don't disagree. I think that this is a smart move if you own a comic book publishing house, you are in the box office and you have your own streaming platform. I think that this is just an overall smart move.
All right, so more HBO Max news. HBO Max has landed a Carrie Underwood holiday special. The Pretty Little Liars reboot has gotten a series order. There's a drama series inspired by Rashomon that is in development. HBO Max is set to board the reality series The Bridge. There is a crime thriller called No Sudden Move that has been announced for HBO Max. And then finally, the HBO Max has landed 2 films that originally were headed for the theaters. The first one is Greenland. Greenland actually is releasing in certain theaters, and it will be paid video on demand, but in early 2021, it will come to HBO Max much sooner than other people would have anticipated due to a deal that's in place. And then the other one is Warner Media has shifted The Witches, which is a film based off of a Roald Dahl book that was originally supposed to come out in theaters this month. They have now shifted that to a Max original, and that will make its way to HBO Max this month as well. So there's 2 more films that were originally set to release in theaters that, again, along with Borat at Prime Video and The Guilty at Netflix, these projects are shifting over to streaming. And it goes in line, what I was hinting at earlier when I said I was going to bring it back up during HBO Max, is it continues to go in line with what we've talked about, how these mid-tier budgets, the budgets that are under $100 million, in some cases much lower than $100 million, they're getting scooped up by the streaming services. Obviously, Warner Media is shifting The Witches over to HBO Max. That's in-house, but there are projects like Greenland that wasn't produced in-house, that is coming from outside, but it will still end up on HBO Max in the future. This is still happening because these films, they realize, or the companies behind the films, they're realizing there isn't an audience in the theaters at this exact moment. Unfortunately, that's just not how it's turning out to be. As if you've been paying attention to entertainment news outside of streaming the last couple days, you probably have heard that there's a massive amount of films that have now shifted their dates yet again. Originally, Wonder Woman 1984 was supposed to come out at the beginning of October. It shifted over to Christmas. All of the other Warner Brothers films for the rest of the year have shifted. The major ones have shifted into 2021. The James Bond film, which was the first movie to move its release date from April of 2020, has now shifted from the November date that it had all the way to April of 2021 as well.
There's no road ahead for profitable big box office movies currently in the United States.
Yeah, and this is at the same exact time where we're hearing theaters saying they're shuttering their theaters for the foreseeable future. There's been a couple different theater chains that have said that they're shutting down indefinitely because there just isn't it's not viable for them to keep their lights on while films try to, like, you can get a couple films out here or there that can come out that aren't really, they don't need to make a ton of money to be profitable, but is it still profitable for the theaters to have a couple films or to keep showing re-releases of films that have been out for a couple decades? I personally love the film, going to the theater. I love seeing films in the movie theater. That is something that I really enjoy doing. I probably would have been doing a lot more frequently if I didn't have a bunch of kids in my house right now that prevent me from going out as frequently as I'd like to. But honestly, I would go out all the time. COVID obviously has put a wrench in a lot of different things. It closed a lot of theaters for an extended amount of time. And even when they reopened for Tenet, while I was there and Tony went and saw it too, there's not a lot of people who are going out to the theater. So unfortunately, it's just a situation where it's not business, it's not sound business to make sure that your film's coming out when there's not a market for people to actually want to go and see these films in theaters. So streaming services are basically allowing certain films to get picked up that didn't cost a ton of money, aren't going to take a loss if they release on a streaming service. They're allowing them to find an audience and still, walk away with a little bit of money instead of losing money.
I don't disagree. I mean, I feel like I completely agree with your points, and it kind of reinforces the idea that I talked at the very beginning of the show of how Netflix is picking up a lot of these, lower mid-tier films in terms of budgets, not in terms of quality. Picking up a lot of these films, I feel like streaming is offering this opportunity to deliver this content in a new way, in a new medium. And it's going to be a change. It's going to be a change in the industry. I don't know if it's going to be a long-term trend. I don't know if it's going to be just short-term, but there is this change that's happening, and we're seeing these movies move to this way. There was a comment on Apple TV. Remember, there a few months back, they were like picking up content left and right, and like we're spending a whole lot of money on it. And there was a comment made by one of the analysts of just, selling the movie rights, like risking a potential monetary shortfall, given the COVID issues in the United States, given the fact that theaters are not, making money at all for these movies. It is better for a lot of these lower tier movies just to sell their rights to a streaming service. Like, they might not get the big box office potential, but they can at least break even. They can at least come out, cash positive throughout this entire process. And that's what these streaming services are allowing the opportunity of. It's going to be the new norm. And hopefully that the industry will learn from maybe certain mistakes by other players in the business. I feel like Mulan was too high a price for paid video on demand. I'm just curious how those types of things are going to move forward, and which streaming services are going to do like a premium tier where you can pay before, during the subscription, or just doing it right to delivering it right onto the service itself without this type of extra tax on top. So it's just the way how the world's going to be. It's the new normal. It's the new world, and it's pretty crazy and it's pretty different, but it's just the way it's going to be.
All right, so then jumping over to Peacock. Peacock has added the entire Saturday Night Live library. This was something that they have said that they were going to be doing for quite some time, but for whatever reason they held off. It makes actually somewhat sense because it actually debuted in the beginning of the month, right before the very first episode of season 46 of Saturday Night Live actually debuted on NBC, and obviously the new episodes will appear on Peacock as well, but they added the entire library, which previously was not available. There's a ton of content out there that was not available out there, for the public to consume. So props to Peacock for that.
This is a huge move. I mean, Saturday Night Live is huge. Culturally, it's got a certain weight to it. Like every year on the politics season, every 4 years when there's a big election, like Saturday Night Live, they will do their funny parody, and it is quite comedic no matter which side of the aisle that you lean on. But all for that said, it's great that they're allowing the ability to watch a bunch of older content. I'm curious if this includes also the content that happens each release as it comes out live. I'm curious if that's going to be in Peacock as well, because it's a really huge hit. I mean, Saturday Night Live for all these years is still a really huge hit. I mean, and then continuing on that point, not just Saturday Night Live itself, but also the late night television. I mean, Jimmy Fallon's huge, and he's got a huge audience, and I'm curious to see, are they going to add his catalog of stuff, all the other Seth Meyers' show? Are they going to do that live as well? I think that's a really interesting and good opportunity for Peacock to grow and to have their content on. It's still live television. It's not like sports or something, but there's something about news or news comedy, a sketch comedy that, seeing that live is still pretty special and it's pretty unique. Hopefully they dive into that more.
And I will say, I do remember them saying that originally, before obviously COVID hit, that the late night shows were actually going to debut earlier on Peacock. Like they were going to be released at like 7 or 8 p.m. rather than when they actually released later in the evening. But I don't remember, they didn't really pick up on any of that. I just remember that being part of the initial announcement from their investor summit that they had back in January. So we'll see what happens with that. All right, jumping over to niche streaming services, Shudder has announced that they have hit 1 million subscribers. Shudder is, of course, the horror-based network that comes from AMC. And then we have other streaming providers. We have Xumo, which is the Comcast-owned version of Tubi, Pluto TV. But Comcast owns that one, and they have announced that they have surpassed 24 million monthly active users, which is huge numbers, puts them not that far off of what Tubi has said their numbers for active users are every single month. But again, that just cements that there is still a market for advertising video on demand, or in some cases, the live versions of shows being able to be watched for free with ad support. All right, so with all of that being said, I'll just give a couple hints on what the next episode will hold for you. So we've got two different discussion points. One of them is dealing with Warner Media landing a Major League Baseball rights package and how that could end up leading to a number of games airing on HBO Max sometime in the near future. So we're going to talk about that. Then we're also going to talk about COVID's effects on streaming. Since we're about 6 months after COVID has really shut a lot of things down, we're going to talk about some of the effects that it's had on streaming, and obviously we've talked at length about the movies being picked up by the streaming services, but we're going to talk about some of the TV series and some of the things that things have changed within streaming because of COVID. So those are things we're going to talk about on the next episode. So look forward to that. If you are completely unfamiliar, the show notes that we have are available on the streamingwars.io. If you check out the show notes, there is a massive amount of trailers that have released over the past 2 weeks. Out of the 5 pages of show notes that we have, 2 pages are completely trailers because there's just that many trailers that have released over the past 2 weeks. So be sure to check out the show notes. Like I said, the streamingwars.io is our website. You can also follow us on Twitter and join our Discord to check out all the articles as we find them that are related to everything that we talk about here and some that we don't. You can also follow us on Instagram for all the latest announcements related to new episodes of the podcast posting. Outside of that, you can send us an email at thestreamingwars@gmail.com with any questions, comments, concerns, things you'd like us to talk about, feedback, anything at all. And of course, wherever you are listening to this podcast, we greatly appreciate if you could leave us feedback, because that is super helpful for the show growing and reaching more people. With all of that being said, for Tony and myself, this has been the Streaming Wars. We'll see you guys next time.
Thanks for listening to the Streaming Wars. Check us out on Twitter and Instagram. Also consider supporting us on Patreon. Links can be found at thestreamingwars.io.